The garden that never stops blooming. Hi, I'm Heidi from Garden Crossings, and we're going to do an update today on the Bloomables garden. These are perennials that come from Darwin Perennials, part of Ball Seed Company. And this garden, we planted it up in May, and it has been consistently in color ever since. So we are in mid-August right now, and even though things kind of transition, there's always color going on. So let's go ahead and take a look at some of the perennials that are in this Bloomables garden. So to give you a little context on where this garden is planted and what's going on in this space, what you're seeing here is our drain field. So we just recently got this hydro seeded, and it's just starting to come through a little bit, the grass. But this is a giant drain field that we had here at Garden Crossings, and we had to move it when we put in all of our new offices, which are all of the windows that you're seeing here in the video. So we wanted this space to be kind of a little bit park-like feeling, like with the grass, a place where people could perhaps hang out, have lunch, or visitors come and just sit and enjoy. But we also wanted it to be very colorful as well. So we lined the perimeter of this garden with Bloomables perennials. So this is a new perennial line to us, and the thing that we've noticed with these bloomable perennials is that we are consistently having month after month of color. Now some of the plants are cycling, they'll have spent blooms, we'll trim them and they'll bloom again, which has been really nice to see. But there's just so much color that's continually going on. So let's take a look at some of the plants in this garden that are showing off right now. Here we have the first plant, and this is a new plant to us. We've never grown the helenium before. And this is the Salud Embers. And look at all of those beautiful daisy-like flowers. This plant has been blooming for months now. And as you can see, it's putting on some new growth with some buds. So it's going to continue to put on more show and more color for probably another good month, taking us into fall. Here's another one, and you can see the beautiful flowers along with the new growth on this plant as well. So really a unique, even fall looking flower color. We have a bunch of coneflowers planted. So these are the sombrero series of coneflowers. Basically, we took just about every sombrero coneflower that's out there and did mass planting in this garden. So we love the sombrero coneflowers. They're excellent branching, excellent flower color, vivid flower color, and they have just been doing fabulous. This is a sombrero grande gold, a beautiful golden flower. And you'll notice too, we're leaving the spent blooms on because that is where the goldfinch like to come, and they'll pick the seeds out of these flowers. We did plant a staple plant here in the corner, and this is the hydrangea Quickfire Fab. So Quickfire Fab is going to get about 6 foot tall or so once it's mature. So we wanted kind of an anchor plant, and we knew that we would need a shrub to do so. So that is where Quickfire Fab was planted. We planted some of the Nemesia Aromance mulberry around it just to have some consistent annual color. You can see that the Nemesia is starting to kind of peter out, which is expected for this time of year here in West Michigan. We also planted some Achillea in this garden, and the Achillea bloomed earlier on. We gave it a little light trim, and look at here, it's back to blooming again. Compact, this one's only about 18 to 24 inches tall, so not a super tall Achillea, which is nice because it also tends to not flop because it's not a super tall variety. There's another new vintage red, and those blooms are pretty much spent at this point. But even the spent blooms do add interest and color into the garden. There's some Coreopsis, part of the Uptick series. These were recently trimmed, and I am going to get wet. The sprinklers just came on. Okay, let's see if I'm going to take one for the team or if they're going to just do the water in the grass. Oh, they are definitely not going to do the water in the grass. Okay, this video will be continued later. Now that the sprinklers have turned off, I can get back in here and show you the plants along with their names. So we left off here talking about the Coreopsis, the Uptick. This is the yellow and red. These were trimmed, and you can see there's more buds and flowers starting. Making our way through the garden, we've got sedum, and this is a low growing sedum, great for fall color. This is sedum shamrock, and you can see it's got nice foliage color and that bright red flower starting to emerge. The penstemon have done good this year. There's 3 different colors out in this garden. This is the Cherry Sparks penstemon. This bloomed earlier in the season, and you can see it's rewarding us now with a few bonus or later in the season blooms, some new growth there. And it's all because we gave them a little trim. Veronica is another one of those usually May blooming perennials here in Michigan. And with a light trim, they're back to blooming again. This is the Veronica called Skyward Lilac. Oenothera, look at this beautiful ground cover. This is the Evening Sun, nice big yellow blooms, purple, silver blue foliage, an excellent ground cover if you're just looking to kind of fill in a little space in your garden. Pincushion flower, also known as scabiosa, is a very long blooming perennial, and this is a plant that the butterflies love. This is called Flutter Deep Blue, and you can see the nice deep purple blue blooms. More coneflowers. Like I mentioned, we planted a lot of coneflowers in this garden. One of the most impressive plants, though, that I have to say is this Agastache. Part of the Summer Long series. Oh, don't mind the weed. Let's get rid of that. Can't have that in a picture. Part of the Summer Long series. This is Magenta. This plant has been in full bloom since it was planted in May. Great branching, and great branching results in lots of flowers. And this plant has been a hard-working perennial non-stop in this garden, and this is a great plant for the hummingbirds. Here's another one that is reblooming. This is another Helenium. This is Salud Yellow, and look at those beautiful yellow blooms. We'll take a look here at this plant, and here's the original flowers that were earlier this spring. The plant sent up more growth, which resulted in more buds and more buds and more beautiful flowers. This garden is a pollinator or a butterfly focused garden. I would say the majority of the plants in here are something that our pollinators and butterflies are going to really love. We've got the Arctic Fox Lemon Cream Digitalis or Foxglove. This was another early bloomer. We trimmed it back, and look at more spikes emerging with more yellow flowers. This is a really unique foxglove. I don't think that I've seen any out there before that are this beautiful solid creamy yellowish white color. So something definitely to look for in 2025 at Garden Crossings. Salvia Blue Bayou, this one blew right out of the greenhouse in a fast hurry. We had no idea how popular this Salvia Blue Bayou would be, and definitely we need to ramp our numbers up for next year. This was trimmed back, and you're seeing new growth, and again, more flowers. I mean, when you're planting a perennial garden, how ideal would it be to have perennials that are long blooming, give them a little trim, and they'll bloom again. I think that's really a lot of people's goal, is to have perennials that are always in bloom, and this definitely is showing you some really good options to be able to get that done in the garden. Here's some Armeria. This is the Dreamaria series, Sweet Dreams. This plant just continues to send up these little globe flowers throughout the summer. Perfect size for a border, just really nice and short, and I just love how the flowers just dance in the breeze. Another Coreopsis, part of the Uptick series. This one is Golden Bronze, and this one looks like it's about ready for a light trim to deadhead it, so we can get more flowers again later on. Pelarmonium or Jacob's Ladder Golden Feathers. This has been a very popular plant for us over the past 3 to 4 years. Beautiful variegated foliage, and in the spring this sends up really soft lavender blooms. So this one doesn't rebloom, but with that foliage, that's giving you the color throughout the season that is a good substitute anyways for the blooms. More Coreopsis Uptick series. This is the Uptick Gold. Gorgeous mounding habit. Look at this, double scoop mandarin. Is that not just a huge show of color? Delosperma, this is part of the Ocean Sunset series. This is Violet Flare. Look at those pretty blooms. Earlier in the season when this plant was just loaded from one side to the other with blooms, it was just a beautiful mass of color that you could see from quite a distance. We did line this garden bed with some annuals because we weren't sure just how long all of these perennials would bloom. So we do have some of the Meteor Showers Verbena, along with the Supertunia Mini Vista Hot Pink, and then the Kufia Vermillionaire, which is a favored annual by the hummingbirds. So that just gave us a consistent look in the garden for if these perennials were going to be cycling through, which definitely it wasn't needed. We'll do it again, but definitely not needed because the color has just been continuous. Sombrero Blanca, a nice clean white coneflower. It's been really fun to watch especially the yellow finches as they've been coming in the garden. It's just so pretty when you get those colorful birds. This is an alyssum called Golden Spring, and this alyssum is definitely a spring bloomer with yellow blooms, but even when it's not flowering, the foliage is pretty nice just to have kind of an interesting texture here as a ground cover. Another Agastache that has done amazing. That Summer Long series, definitely something to look for. This is the Summer Long Coral. Now, one thing I will say is these are a Zone 7 Coreopsis, so I'm not sure how they're going to do here in our Zone 6A garden. We'll find that out next year. But even if these only live as an annual here in our space, because of the color that they've continually put on in this garden, I'm okay with growing them as an annual if that's what it needs to be. Another Scabiosa, part of the Flutter series. This is Flutter Pure White. I'm always a little bit, not nervous, but hesitant with planting white plants because you never really know how are those white flowers going to age and fade. Are they going to fade to brown, or are they going to stay fairly clean looking? And as you can see on this plant, these white flowers, they stay pretty clean looking even as they start to fade. Another Achillea, New Vintage Violet. You can see the flowers on these are all spent at this point in the season, but even from a distance with those spent blooms, it still adds some unique interest and even color because they kind of look white from a distance. The Nepeta Junior Walker. These were given a nice trim and now they're starting to rebloom. You can see the butterfly there is loving it. Agastache Summerlong Lilac. I think there's 4 or 5 colors in this series, and so far none of them have been a disappointment. Chrysalis series of butterfly bush. You can see the butterfly just flew away. Very compact in size. So these were just planted, so they're smaller than what they're going to actually be. I think they'll get about 2, maybe 3 foot tall when they're mature, but they're just a very nice, cute, compact size. And this is the Chrysalis Pink. So we are also doing a trial in this garden with the Fairy Trail Bride hydrangeas. So these here are the Fairy Trail Bride hydrangeas. These are planted up from quartz, and why we're trialing them is because they're a Zone 6. They've recently been brought down to a Zone 6 as far as hardiness. So we're doing a trial to see if that is the case here in our garden. So people have asked us if these are reliable, and I can't honestly say based off my own experience if they are or are not. So next year we'll be talking about the Fairy Trail Green, the Fairy Trail White, and the Fairy Trail Bride, and be able to give you some feedback as far as how hardy they were here in our gardens. Isn't that a fun plant? That's a Centura Silver Swirl, also part of the Dusty Miller family. Beautiful silver foliage, and we didn't know this, but it does also on occasion shoot up flowers. So these are kind of spent blooms, but it gets little yellow kind of ball shaped flowers, Now that's something you can trim off if you don't like the looks of it, or leave it if you do like the looks. But that was kind of a surprise once we started to see those guys kind of emerge. Here's another penstemon in the background, part of the Rock Candy series. This is Rock Candy Purple. Look at that, beautiful flower spikes. And this is an excellent rebloom. So much color. Artemisia Sunfern Olympia. Kind of just a nice texture plant. It almost looks like a juniper from a distance. Low growing, just adds, yeah, unique texture into the garden. More of the chrysalis series of butterfly bush. This is the chrysalis steel blue. Nice and compact, full of flowers, and fragrant. Agastache Summerlong Peach. There's another one. Full of color, beautiful scent. Very impressed. Now I almost missed a sedum, and I know there's those of you who are wanting more sedum options. Here's the sedum What a Doozy. Look at that, tricolors, green, yellow, and pink. Beautiful flowers, beautiful foliage. And the flowers, I think these plants are still a little too young, so there is a few flowers on here that are spent blooms, but next year as the flowers age, or as the plants age, we're going to see more flowers. But in the meantime, that's pretty wonderful foliage there on What a Doozy. Here's a wallflower, Bowls Me Away. This was very early to bloom in the greenhouse. So it's really nice to see that it's still sending out some shoots. They're a little sporadic and sparse, but in the greenhouse this spring, this was just loaded with those beautiful purple blooms. We've got some North Pole arborvitae planted up against the cement, and that's just to kind of block our compost pile. So as time goes on, hopefully we won't have to see all of the junk that's behind those plants. Sombrero Lemon Yellow. More penstemon Rock Candy. A few flowers on here. This is the Rock Candy Ruby. Ruby pinkish red blooms. More cone flowers. And here we've more of the Flutter series. This is Rosy Pink, Scabiosa. I hope you enjoyed the update of the Bloomables garden, and it is mid-August right now, so some of the things in the garden are starting to look a little tired, but I was really impressed overall with the amount of flower color that is still going on and the ability of so many of these perennials that have started to rebloom here later on in the summer. If you have any questions or comments, please feel free to leave them below. Some of these varieties we do carry on our website, gardencrossings.com. Some of these varieties are new varieties for 2025. So check us out next January if you want to pre-order for some of your favorites that you've seen in today's garden. Thanks for watching. I'm Heidi from Garden Crossings.